This is our 4th annual event, but it started as, it was a slow build from a community-based standpoint of collectors. I started the Atlanta Pinball League a while ago, I think in 2010, and the network of collectors and hobbyists that I met realized that there wasn't a expo or games on location or really any way to play games like these except in people's basements. So it grew out of my interest in that and the connections I made with people who had the similar interests that I do. And so 5 of my friends, we started planning this over 5 years ago. We did a little bit of a Kickstarter, and I had some support because I do a podcast called Gameroom Junkies. And I started that in 2010, and we had an audience kind of built in to advertise and market this to, and then the collecting community that we already knew. And so we just were able to pool a little money together between the 5 of us and a little bit of help through that Kickstarter. And in 2014, we had all the community support to bring out, I think we had like 150 games and a few panels, and it was the first Southern Fried Gameroom Expo, and it's just grown every year since. So retro gaming culture is a big phenomenon, partly because people are nostalgic for their childhood youth, and people who were kids at the time want to reconnect with their past. But part of it is also because a little bit of that social atmosphere, especially of the arcades, if you were a kid in the 70s or 80s or early 90s, then going to the mall and having the arcade as a place to go with your friends, that's totally lost. So it's a way to connect with people who share that sense of community. And then as far as pinball goes, which is a big part of this show, you know, that's something that can't be replicated digitally. They make it on digital platforms, but as far as just the physical nature of the machines and the physics of it, playing a real one in person is really the best way to do it, and so there's a lot of love for that. Aside from just the size of it and the number of attendees, we first started with just retro gaming as far as video games, pinballs, and then console game systems. But due to the space limitations, we neglected some other aspects of gaming. So last year we expanded to tabletop. So with the increased space of the move from the Century Center to the Renaissance Waverly, we were able to get a large tabletop gaming area, able to expand the number of games, and then last year we also added wrestling to the mix. It doesn't make sense, it's not gaming related, but it's another way to have fun and offer something for everyone. It's a little bit easier now because we know a little bit what we're doing and can learn from previous years' mistakes and grow and improve. But after each show, we do take some time off of just not thinking about it. But then we have our contracts in place with the venue over a year in advance, so we know the dates we have. We already have our date for next year's show. And then it's a matter of booking guests, because we know we'll get games, we just don't know what they'll be. So we know we can count on games, and it's basically just picking out the special guests to come to draw more people. So the game designers, film people, and then it's kind of building the show around them, maybe like a theme. So last year we had Lance Guest, who was in the movie Last Starfighter, so having a gaming tournament around the Last Starfighter theme. So it's just, that's the second thing we do, and then it's a matter of collecting game volunteer donations so we know what's coming, and then soliciting for vendors and planning the tournaments, and that's basically how we do it. And then the last 2 weeks of the show are the really, really fine details of getting signs printed and doing little things that people wouldn't notice, people don't notice, but if they weren't there, it wouldn't be as smooth of a convention without them. Dream guests for the event. We've been trying to book Steve Ritchie. He's a pinball designer. He designed some of the most popular games of the last 30 years. I think he has the highest selling number of pinball machines. We've been looking to get him. And then we like to try to have some crossover, so not just big celebrities. I think people who were in movies that celebrate gaming, like Tron, so maybe Bruce Boxleitner, somebody like that. But no, we really don't have one marquee. We try to find different avenues and different guests of all types. The hardest part is making sure this well-oiled machine is well-oiled. Actually, the week of the convention and the convention itself, it's making sure everyone is where they're supposed to be, the panels are being led, guests are accounted for, we have pickup from the hotel, pickup from the airport, we have emails being sent out, and there's 3 organizers, and we rely a lot on our volunteer support to do that, but it's still just pulling the strings to make sure everything's going. And then the final hard part is, of course, helping load and unload 250, 300-pound machines. So physically it's hard as well. The number of guests, if you include panel experts and people who were game designers and film festival guests, I'd say we probably had 50 guests. So last year we had just around 3,000, and looking at ticket sales, I think we're probably going to be safe to say we have 3,400 to 3,500 people this year. I can't believe I helped create this, because this totally wouldn't have existed, not just without me, but without the rest of the organizing crew and the volunteers. And it's really amazing to see what can happen when people come together, because I like to tell people there are fan conventions, but this is really one of the most fan-driven conventions I've ever seen, because the games aren't supplied by me. I actually didn't bring a game this year. All the games are from people who love to share this hobby with others and are willing to haul a 300-pound machine out of their basement. So looking at just how many people came together to make something like this happen is really overwhelming, and that's kind of what I think about when I see the show. When you look at the attendees, I know that we sold out the hotel this year, so I think that's close to 500 rooms. But then, you think about the food and beverage sales, and then the vendors. I really couldn't put a price tag on it, but I'm sure it's growing to be somewhat significant. We have been asked if we could take this as a traveling show to other cities that don't have this, but unfortunately, like I mentioned, it's a community-driven event where local collectors and regional collectors share their collections. So unfortunately, we can't travel to another show. We have thought about a different type of expo, maybe just retro themed with different types of things for people who are nostalgic for the days of their youth and entertainment things. But Atlanta's got a really strong convention scene already, and I don't know that if we added it, it would probably be too crowded if we added it. So I'm not sure that we're going to act on that right now, and this honestly takes up a lot of time. The first 2 years of our event, we actually strategically planned it on Father's Day as an opportunity for fathers to be able to take their children and show them maybe the games of their youth and bond over that with them. I know every year there are kids that come who have never seen a pinball machine. And so it's a chance for parents to connect and instill not only a love of gaming, but a better understanding of the parents as children for their children. And then also with tabletop gaming, it's a great way to start maybe being exposed to the idea of like a family game night, having a regular time to gather around a table and play a board game that's very fun and family oriented. My all-time favorite game is Street Fighter II. I was a little too young to really see the golden age of the arcade in like the very early 80s, but in 1992 the resurgence of the arcades was brought about by Street Fighter II and then Mortal Kombat following that. And I remember riding my bike to the corner arcade. We had a little convenience store, and in the back they had a game room. And I remember putting my quarter up on the edge of the control panel, waiting my turn, and realizing I was actually good enough at the game to beat someone who was an adult. And here I was, this 12-year-old kid, showing him who's the boss on this video game. And it was pretty empowering, and I never forget that. So I actually have one in my game room now in my basement at home, and I love that game and never get rid of that one.